Good morning, everyone, to what is a beautiful Thursday morning again. We are being spoiled here in Melbourne. Welcome to the Eureka Conservative Daily with me and my co-star down here, if you can see him, at my feet. It won't be long before he's in the background on the couch, but he always starts at my feet, which is actually a bit unusual. Usually he cracks it. They're so good, dogs. I mean, the dogs have been in the news this week, but what I love about dogs is they give you a laugh. Right? They just bring you back. It puts your feet on the ground and make you realise that, don't take things as seriously as you may otherwise do. Anyway, Thursday morning, we're nearly through a week. I've got up every day. I've shocked myself, especially this morning. I had a pretty late one last night. So I've managed to get the clock going and get up and get into things, which is I was a bit concerned about. But I got one more day to go. If I get through a whole week, I'll be a very happy man. So anyway, let's get into it. We'll give you the view of our bay. Oh, God, laptops. That's the Melbourne weather across Port Phillip Bay today. A little bit of cloud coming. They predicted rain yesterday. We got a little bit, but not a lot. So we're supposed to, one of these days, it's supposed to bucket down. So not sure what it's going to do. But as you can see, there's a bit of a ripple on the bay, but that's about it. A bit windy, which is normal in winter, and a few grey clouds, but mostly blue sky. So for a Melburnian, you can't complain about that. In the middle of winter. we've had a few bad days on weather. We had about a streak of, I think, about 4 days. But other than that, so all the talk will naturally now go towards the dams and how much rain we've had and climate change and all that sort of bullshit. Yes, in the morning I can swear too. Okay, and our politicians and governments give us enough to swear about, which we'll get into today. But before we do all that, before I start ruining the English language, let's get into our daily passage from the Bible. And today we're coming from Mark 9:14 through 29. Jesus heals a boy. He's driving out the evil spirits. In driving out the evil spirits from this boy, Jesus shows his supreme power in the spiritual realm and emphasizes the role of prayer in this work. When they joined the rest of the disciples, they saw a large crowd round them and some teachers of the law arguing with them. When the people saw Jesus, they were greatly surprised and ran to him and greeted him. Jesus asked his disciples, "What are you arguing with them about?" A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought my son to you because he has an evil spirit in him and cannot talk." Sounds like some of my players I coach. Wherever the spirit attacks him, it throws him to the ground and he foams at the mouth, grits his teeth, and becomes stiff all over. I asked your disciples to drive the spirit out, but they could not. That actually sounds so like some of our leftist freaky friends, the blonde hair, blue rids ones who just shout down the microphone at someone, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus said to them, "How unbelieving you people are. How long must I stay with you? How long do I have to put up with you? Bring the boy to me." They brought him to Jesus. As soon as the spirit saw Jesus, it threw the boy into a fit so that he fell on the ground and rolled around foaming at the mouth. "How long has he been like this?" Jesus asked the father. "Ever since he was a child," he replied. "Many times the evil spirit has tried to kill him by throwing him in fire and into water. Have pity on us and help us if you possibly can." "Yes," said Jesus. "If you yourself can, everything is possible for the person who has faith." The father at once cried out, "I do have faith, but not enough. Help me to have more." Jesus noticed that the crowd was closing in on them, so he gave a command to the evil spirit. "Deaf and dumb spirit," he said, "I order you to come out of the boy and never go into him again." The spirit screamed, threw the boy into a bad fit, and came out. The boy looked like a corpse, and everyone said, "He is dead." But Jesus took the boy by the hand and helped him to rise, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive the spirit out?" Jesus replied, "Only prayer can drive this kind out," answered Jesus. "Nothing else can." There you go. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of parents out there who've got some kids who misbehave and I think might have a bit of a spirit, an evil spirit inside them they'd like to cure. It must have been, I reflect on this quite a bit. It must have been incredible times when you read quotes like that out of the Bible, and you've got the Son of God walking around and curing people and bringing them back from the dead and all that, and you're witnessing it. You're witnessing things that no human had seen before and no human has probably ever seen since. Must have been incredible times to be just walking in his footsteps and witnessing all this and seeing the power of what the Son of God could do for others. We could do with a fair bit of it right now, couldn't we? In this crazy old world that we live in. So anyway, that's the Bible passage which we do each day. Like I said, if you're a Christian, consider it. If you're not a Christian, consider it. No harm in reading it and enlightening yourself to what the Bible is all about. And maybe, just like it did with me passing a little bit of that on, it might just trigger something inside of you to give it a lot more thought. And I think if I can just achieve that through this podcast with one person, then I've done something pretty decent, which will be a green tick in my book of good and bad. And I need a few green ticks in that book, I tell you. So all my time is done. So what are we going to focus on this morning? We've got now, so we're going to focus, especially with the state election coming up, on the Victorian government a little and what has started to happen this week. Unless you've been living under a rock, and listen, a lot of people outside Victoria probably don't pay much attention to what's going on in Victoria, but not long ago, Victoria voted for the treaty. Never mind that Victorians rejected the voice, which is the same thing as the treaty. So instead of getting it federally, we've now got it statewide. So we have another chamber of parliament that's committed to the Indigenous community, and they have input, far greater input than any other part of our society, into our laws, into our actions, into our government's actions. And they're really unrepresentative people because they only get voted in, even with the Indigenous community. So it's not compulsory to vote like in other elections. They only get voted in by a very small percentage of their own Indigenous community. And a lot of people just, are not interested in it. But Victorian government, they've got to look good, they've got to feel good, they've got to have all their woke initiatives, and they are grasping at straws. So they had to jump on this bandwagon because basically they're a bunch of Marxists who just like to pit one Australian against the other. Whether you're Indigenous, whether you're non-Indigenous, whether you're Asian, whether you're Indian, whatever. If you're born in Australia, if you live in Australia, if you're an Australian citizen, we should be doing things to unite us, not doing things that will divide us. And that goes well past mass immigration as well. So right now, on every single turn, with every single decision, it seems both federally and at state level, our governments are presented with two decisions. It's like the fork in the road. Which one am I going to take? And the two decisions are a decision that will divide us. So they keep talking about social cohesion. Social cohesion, it can mean two things. You can have bad social cohesion or you can have good social cohesion. The one that unites us, the one that divides us. And whenever they ever get to that decision, the ALP seem to always go for the one that divides us every single time. And that's why we really need to push back in a big, big way. So I decided to do this podcast daily, for example, because I think we need to be constantly talking about it. And I decided to do this after the Melbourne Welcomes Modi rally because that just annoyed the crap out of me. We had an India, and I don't understand why there's not a lot more. I've talked to a bunch of people who said, just do the old Australian thing, shrug their shoulders, whatever, it's nothing to worry. It doesn't bother me, so it doesn't affect me, so I'll go on. But it does affect you. It affects you in plenty of ways. A lot of people don't understand the fifth columns, not column. Like in World War II, they interned the Japanese citizens or anybody who had Japanese citizenry in their heritage because they were at war with Japan. They didn't want a fifth column going around in America, for example. And we did it here in Australia too, committing terrorist acts on our infrastructure, especially our defence infrastructure or attacking citizens or things like that. So they put them in camps for the term of World War II. But that's one fifth column. We've got a bunch of potential fifth columns in Australia that if we ever went into conflict or they decided to rise up, we would have serious issues in Australia, as they would in America, as they would in England, as they would throughout Europe, because they've gone too far with their wokeism or their Fabianism, I'd call it. And so anyway, let's have a look at what I am talking about. Got to go into my bookmark, so I've got to learn to have this all set up before I get on, don't I? I'm getting better with it, but mornings I keep telling they're not my best. So there's my Eureka Conservative folder. We'll come back to Michaela in a minute. We'll come back to Sophie in a minute. Oh, God, we've got a few here. So with the whole point of what we're doing is the news of the day. So that we got up to there yesterday. So this is what I'm talking about. We'll get this in the right screen. There we go. And we'll pause it. Now this, God, this lady here, Victoria has regressed to a jungle circus for a parliament. Oz Integrity is a good fella to follow at QBCC Integrity. Part of my program, I also want to give people a chance if they don't know anyone to follow. Here's a guy or girl, don't know, Oz Integrity. I apologise. Can't misgender anybody these days. You should give him a follow. Australia should be deeply ashamed to have allowed a great nation to be subverted at the highest levels. Hallelujah. This is what Albo wants for Australia. It's not kind or respectful. Couldn't agree more. So this lady here, she's a member of the Indigenous Parliament. Now, traditionally, if you go into Parliament, you go in presenting yourself to represent your people in a proper manner. You dress well, you present yourself well, you do all this. But this is our now new Indigenous Parliament. Let's see what this woman's got to say. Oh, volume would be good. There we go. Let's have a listen.
Genocide. And so with that, law versus law. Let's get this done. I'm ready. Are you? If you forgot, my name's Keisha Day. And in the words of my favourite senator, Senator Briggs, I'm not just a descendant of. I am Gunditj Mara, I am Yorta Yorta, and I am Wamba Wamba. Always was, always will be. Thank you.
Let's just have a look in the background. Where's the Australian flag? Where the hell is it? They've turned it into a little jungle. That's our parliament. That's our parliament. And these people, God knows what this is costing us. If you look at that, you know, you got the two at the front. It's supposed to reflect a parliamentary house, but there's no Australian flag. Why are they not sitting under Australian flag? Or they not? I mean, it is Australian taxpayers, Victorian taxpayers, which will be Australian taxpayers because we're so far in debt that the rest of Victoria is going to bail us out. We fund all this. We pay their wages. We pay for all this crap you're seeing on the screen. We will pay for a whole bunch of Indigenous initiatives that come out of this for pure wokeism to show that how good we are. So, I mean, this nonsense it'll come to every state if we don't get the ALP out. So here's another one. Let's have a listen in.
Tani Morris, Jaburang, Kuairwarang, Peakwarang, General Member for the Southwest Region.
Now, again, just have a look. Where's the Aussie flag? I'll give you a wider screen because this one's a wider screen on this. Have a look. Where's the Aussie flag? Where the hell is it? What the hell is the go with all the plans? I mean, they're trying to say, this is where it's funny. You'll see in a minute. Half these are, I reckon, as Indigenous as me. You know, the funny thing is they all want to recognise their Indigenous background, but none of them will recognise their Anglo background, which is obviously clear as day, especially as you'll see with this woman. They have a fair chunk of Anglo or European background in their DNA. They never want to recognise that. Just what it must be costing our taxpayer. And the thing is, they put all these trees and bushes and shrubs and all that, and they want to be representative of Indigenous, so, you know, like the outback. Yet I guarantee it, nearly every one of these will be inner city leftists to go on their marches and do all these other things, and they'll be the ones who burn the Australian flag on Australia Day and carry on about all that. They wouldn't survive in the outback for half a day. You know, but here they are bringing the outback into the parliament and doing all this. It's just not serious. It's a joke. But anyway, let's listen to what she's got to say. Let's be fair. And Oh, God, got to find. Where am I? Oh, what am I doing? Let's be fair. Sorry, guys. Let's be fair and have a look at her. Tell me how much in Indigenous DNA do you think she's got? There you go. These two here. These three. Is that red hair, brown hair? She's Indigenous. She's very well fed. Seriously, these are the people. Look at this guy in the background. T-shirt. That's his respect. Treaty for Victoria. That's what we're talking about. Another one in there with some sort of scarf. Do these people look representatives to you? They look like they've drawn them straight off the street.
Lenyong, Tani Morris, Korewarong, Pikarong, Japarong, Low, Austin Clark, Wakan, Wanang, Nutriong, Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, Mering, Meringi, Morung, Meringi, Ba, Marichi, Meringi, Kadiporig Wakan, Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, Nalam, Mini, Wuru, Wurumut, Ku, Kuriki, Napun, Wakun, Wanan, Neriang, Sharilo.
Do you reckon? Sorry. Well, I'm not sorry. I mean, it's like you can't call out a man pretending to be a woman. Isn't this cultural appropriation? What proof do we have that she's got Indigenous background in there? But here she is in our parliament. We're paying her money to be a member of the Indigenous Parliament. What percentage DNA does she have? There should be a certain percentage of DNA you must have to sit in surely an Indigenous Chamber of Parliament committed to Indigenous issues. I'm not seeing it.
Nada Punin.
Oh, and by the way, and all the Indigenous languages pouring out here, she could have practiced that for the last 2 weeks or whatever. Look at that. I mean, sorry, look at the facial features. And I'm not trying to be racist at all. I'm just trying to be common sense. You know, if she could sit in that parliament, so could I.
Dakin Morris. Kapapurang, Wian, Kalatane, Wari. Kukuan, Elias.
Kuku, Aran, Jaya, Maranda, Alara. There you go. It's not hard. Again, let's have a look. Look at their parliament. My God, this guy needs to go to Jenny Craig. Look how well dressed and represented they are. This guy's Indigenous. At least he's got a tie on. She's Indigenous. Seriously? I mean, you can at least see this woman here. You can see that there's some Indigenous traits there. You can see maybe there's some Indigenous traits there, though you couldn't really tell. Behind the beard, he's got all the, like, it's interesting how they wear the coats, you know, the wallaby coats or whatever you talk them to, fur. These guys in nature, I mean, where did he get that fur from? What animal did he kill to get it? Where's all our environmentalists going off on that? Papawang, Yutanga, Yindi, Wakan, Wanai, Fang, Gabi.
I'm
So,
Tani
I can do
Morris.
this.
I'm a proud Japarong, Korewarong, Pikarong woman.
I'm going to try and say that. Oh, my God. I'm a proud Jabberong, Kurong, and Pikarong woman.
I speak today in my mother tongue in hopes that one day my grandchildren will speak fluently in my.
Bullshit. Sorry, I call bullshit in this whole thing. But what's the biggest bullshit is how much money Victorian taxpayers are spending on this bullshit, all for wokeism. And if you're an everyday Australian and you get up and you're going to work and you're paying your taxes and this is what your taxes are going towards, I mean, seriously, I don't know. They're actually turning Indigenous issues into a farce, which is a sad thing in itself, because the Indigenous that really need the help, that's where this money should be going to. And God knows we get lectured every single year about closing the gap. Do you reckon the funds from this are doing anything? Do you reckon this is doing anything about closing the gap and helping our Indigenous out who really need some assistance? Instead, these people are just going to get up and speak like this with this nonsense. God help her kids, if that's what she's talking about. What is her European DNA? That's the question I have. Is she got majority European DNA or Indigenous DNA? Yeah, so anyway, they conveniently ignore that, don't they? All right. Anyway, that is what we've started in Victoria. Coming very soon, probably to other states if we don't do something and push back. Now, Jess Wilson, to her credit, has said that she would scrap this, but to her discredit, what they are looking to do is replace it with another government department. You just should scrap the whole thing entirely and not keep we can't afford it in Victoria. We're $200 billion in debt. We've just given the Commonwealth Games to Scotland and paid Scotland $200 million or whatever it is to take it. We've overspent on the big bill down here. They're one of the biggest farcical spends of government money you've ever seen. And according to it, there's between 15 and 30 billion of that spend has been fraudulent. So it's crazy. Here we go. We've got Albo now. Get back in our split screen. So unless you've been living under a rock, the ALP have been losing their minds. Shout out to Ellie Melly, Alexandra Marshall. She's a great follow if you're not following her already. Everyone's been cracking it with Pauline Hanson spending time with Gina Reinhardt recently on holidays. I think it was in Italy. And they went out. They're good mates. Is there anything wrong with being a good mate of a billionaire? I don't think so. Especially in elections, they're bloody expensive. So you need to have good mates with deep pockets if you're going to be successful. But here's Albo. At least Gina Reinhardt's an Aussie. At least Gina Reinhardt pays Australians. At least Gina Reinhardt employs Australians. At least Gina Reinhardt gives to Australian charities, sporting groups and all that. But Albo, he dines with the Chinese billionaire's son after they got a $1 million donation. As the report says, as ALP slams Hanson over Gina Reinhardt. Hypocrisy obviously has to be the first criteria before you join the ALP. They treat us like we're stupid, and sadly, too many Australians prove them right because they keep voting for the bastards. We had the thing into Islamophobia, the recommendations to make sure thus evil Australians don't act in any negative way that can produce hatred or they can't call it racism because Islam is a faith. It's not a race. But anyway, any bigotry against Islamophobia. But this is in England. Catholic Church of the Assumption, Tullymore, despite repeated requests from locals over a number of weeks, the Muslim residents living nearby have refused to stop hanging their prayer mats and rugs from the church's railing. Zero social etiquette or active social dominance. I think we know which one it is. And when you empower them, they're going to be naturally doing this. When is this coming to Australia? Probably very soon. So, these shows of prayer in the public, they don't do these public prayer demonstrations like we get on our streets. Apparently, and I'm taking this from someone who's lived in one of those countries, they don't do these in Islamic countries. It's frowned upon. They do it here as a sign of dominance and that the Islam domination is coming. So and here we go. We've got another nutter. This give you some background. Rob Smith, Ozbob Smith. Top of the morning, Cobbers. Top of the morning to you, Rob. Thought I'd grace you with some tax-funded breakfast TV. It's the white bread is racist lady. Did she say that? Albanese's mate. Now she's saying that the Racial Discrimination Act doesn't work because workplaces are racist. Well, I'm surprised she doesn't have pink striped hair, but she'd be probably as old as me. But look at that hairstyle. My God. So this is a woman who gets on our breakfast TV. God help us.
They might be thinking, why is that enough? Why do you think those laws aren't enough at the moment?
The Racial Discrimination Act has been in place for 50 years, James, so obviously something's not working. similarly to the Sex Discrimination Act, whatever the human resources industry had put into place to deal with sexism, sex-based harassment, and we now understand racism isn't working. What's happened with sex discrimination, and employers tell us that it's working really well, is a positive duty for employers to take steps to prevent sex-based harassment and
it's interesting when they keep banging on about sex-based harassment. It's all. Hanson got in trouble for this yesterday. She said domestic violence is a two-way thing, which is actually a factual statement. You know, there are men who suffer from domestic violence as there are women. Now, there's naturally more women, but there are men who suffer from it too. But all you hear about is the women. Any domestic violence is wrong, whoever it's perpetrated against. Sexual harassment, and I know this for a fact because I've copped it a couple of times, never whined about it, just said to the person, cut it out. It's not that hard. But I've had women who I could quite easily claim sexually harass me. You know, they'll pinch your butt, they'll rub up against you, they'll do all these sorts of things. This is in the workplace. And they'll try and initiate something. As women can be sexually aggressive, maybe more so than men. But all you ever hear is from the one side.
And we're simply asking for the same to be provided for racism, which is a massive issue.
Really? Massive. That means pretty much across the majority of workplaces, racism exists. But if it exists in a workplace, think about this. They've been employed by a company, a business, or a sole trader or someone to do some work for them. So if they've been employed, that's not an act of racism at the very beginning. If they were racist, they wouldn't have employed them. So are they talking from fellow employees or whatever? Go back 30, 40 years and you would deal with these in the workplace. You don't need a leftist-looking thing like this to lecture us.
We are broadcasting right now into a lot of businesses.
ABC.
Small business people might be watching this.
I'm a small business person wondering what they should do.
What would be your message to them if they've got Indigenous?
Why is she getting a say? I bet you she's never employed a single person in your life. If you've got, here we go, Indigenous people on their staff.
Yeah, so there's two things that we know really effectively work within workplaces. So we know that organisations need to have a complaints procedure.
So these guys, who are as wide as snow-driven hills in Switzerland, are talking about Indigenous issues. My God.
People do experience racism, that they actually have somewhere to turn. And the second thing that's really important is the anti-racism training. So when you've got...
So we're talking about productivity being a big thing in Australia, especially for businesses. So they want me to employ someone, and instead of doing a certain amount of work, we've got to put them through anti-racism training. Are you hearing the stupidity of this? I mean, if there is anyone who employs them, if I employed someone and say, if you've got an issue, come and talk to me. Any issue you like. That should be the end of it. So if a person is suffering racism, they come to talk to me. I bring the two of them in. I give the guy a warning, say, I don't want to hear any more about this. We're all working for the same goal at the end because I want to make a profit as a small business owner. I do not want my employees fighting amongst each other. It's not conducive to me as a business owner to have employees engaging in racism or any sort of conflict amongst each other. I want them pulling the same way so we can all benefit. So I can make a profit in my business, they can continue being employed, and I can pay them a decent wage. It's not that hard.
Both of those two things, our data proves that you have a much safer workplace for Indigenous people.
So it's only about Indigenous. So isn't it interesting? Is there any Indigenous that are racist as well? I mean, everyone can be guilty of certain things they're not proud of, but it's all, again, one-way traffic.
What we actually found through our data is that only...
Look at her. How's she a spokesperson for Indigenous issues? Is that only 1 in 5 Indigenous people
actually have access to both of those things in the workplace?
Noreen and Josh, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's not a great way to start your day, is it? Oh my God. Anyway, let's go to the next one. And she gets on national TV to preach that bullshit. Oh, we got a meme. The government, Tim Joe. Tim's a great follow. He puts up good stuff every day. Tim JBOAU, capital AU. So give him a follow. The government pays the journalists at 9, 7, Crikey, and 181 other newsrooms. I think we went over this yesterday. Sky News host Andrew Bolt has taken the story that One News, they're worth to follow. Look them up, One News Australia. I've only just recently started following them. They've got great stuff. Broke on Labor's $67.6 million journalism assistance fund to a national television audience, demanding the 2,000 journalists whose wages taxpayers now part pay declare the money at the bottom of every article they write. Absolutely. You just heard the quality of journalism on the ABC. Now Albo and his mob are going to try and fund it through our corporate media, who had a shred of at least independence, but that's now gone. So there's an article on this. We'll look at that in a minute, but let's look at the meme first. Have a bit of a laugh. After the lady before, we need a bit of a laugh.
Hey, come on, babe, follow me, I'm the Pied Piper, follow me, I'm the Pied Piper, I'll show you where it's at, come on, babe, can't you see, I'm the Pied Piper, trust in me, I'm the Pied Piper, I'll show you where it's at, I'll show you.
They're very good with what they can do with these memes, aren't they? But, I mean, the serious part of this, and there's always a serious side of all these things, is this is why Albo's trying to restrict, censor, and in many ways shut down our social media. Because people like me, I don't get paid. They can't afford to pay all of us, obviously. They would definitely be paying some people who consider themselves influencers to push their bullshit. But I don't have the following, and I certainly don't have the political side to be doing that. I'm not going to do a Tucker Carlson and do a 180. So unless there's a Liberal government in, and even then I wouldn't accept their grubby money to do any of this. I want to have my independence. So that's why I ask people to shout me a coffee, which I'll get to later on. So, we're supposed to be living in a democracy with free speech. We talk about it all the time. If you're going to have free speech, you've got to actually have free information that is fair and reasonable and transparent. So people who will report on the news of the day, if you've got things like this where your government is paying corporate media for journalist jobs or to contribute towards it, they're naturally going to lean to their employees to make sure they're supportive of the government of the day, which explains all the attacks on Pauline Hanson at the moment, so they can keep getting those funds. They're a business. They want to make money. So, and they will pick and choose which business they want to go to. So that in and itself is something that's going to dilute the supposed democracy that we live in. Because whether you like it or not, mainstream media does still have a lot of influence. Social media has something that's come and evolved and become very powerful. But mainstream media still beams into households. Mainstream media still gets shared through social media, a lot of clips of it. And I'll give you an example from Tim Joe again. This is the Bolt article. So this is mainstream media. Let's have a look at Tim. Oh, sorry, I thought that was an article. Here it is. Taxpayer-funded journalism. Let's have a listen to what Andrew Bolt had to say on his program. And I've lost time for Bolt, but there are certain good things he spoke. In fact, he's got Holly Hughes on there. Is not a good
Holly,
thing. But
this might help explain it. The media pile-on against Pauline Hanson. I should declare you now with One Nation, but the media pile-on against Pauline Hanson, the media defence of Labor's multiculturalism. I reckon the time has come for more media transparency, because most people, they already know the Albanese government pays the ABC journalists, pays the SBS journalists. What almost no Australian knows is that it now also helps to pay the salaries of another 2,000 journalists in nearly 200 private newsrooms under its $67 million Journalism Assistance Fund. It's supposedly to support what it claims is public interest journalism and media diversity. It includes $16 million for the Nine Media Group, $11 million for Channel 7 and its new Southern Cross Group, grants for regional and grants for ethnic papers, and a whole range of exclusively left-wing outlets like Crikey, The Conversation, Mumbrella, The Saturday Paper, Mamma Mia, not $1 to Sky News, of course, or any of the wicked Murdoch papers. Now, Holly, I'm not saying all these journalists toe the Labor line as a result of the money, but shouldn't they at least declare this government money at the bottom of every one of their articles?
Well, but the reality is they're not journalists anymore. They're all some form of opinion writer or commentator on what their personal beliefs are. I have my undergraduate degree was in broadcast journalism, and I can tell you we were taught to report the news. Our opinions didn't matter. And that was how the old days of journalism used to operate. Now, if you look at the papers or watch the news, it's people giving their opinion and their viewpoints. I mean, we're an opinion show. That's what we are. We don't pretend to be anything other than that. These are writing under the guise that they are delivering news and updates and information, but it's all tainted by personal opinions.
And that's a very good point by Holly, which is unusual for me to acknowledge. Mainstream media has evolved that way. Again, you younger ones, you Gen Z, if you're out there, you wouldn't understand what media used to be like. It used to be pretty transparent in the forensic way, investigated politicians of all persuasions. It still always is traditionally leaned left, but now they just don't hide it. So she's spot on there. And that's the way journalism should work.
And those of the organisation that they work for. I could not believe this when I read it. I think it's disgusting. We know that there'll be funding going to some of these pink hair lunatics who sit in their mother's basement with tinfoil on their head, spouting all these ridiculous conspiracies and you know,
and ABC.
all the ridiculous woke issues that we know are going on. There won't be a conservative one, but I can tell you there won't be a conservative one. They'll all have pink hair and septum rings.
But government money on private sector journalists,
1.6 billion to public funding.
I think it's sinister. I don't, well, exactly. But even the private ones, Michael, New Zealand was trying this too. I think it's a corrupting influence because it makes journalists and media outlets look to the government and not want to offend the government. It's just natural.
It's natural and it's wrong, and they should declare themselves. And no one knew that it was to this extent. And they slag Sky and they slag the Australian, but none of them would exist because the public don't want their wares unless they got these government subsidies. The Sydney Morning Herald will probably go out of business. So the same with certainly with the boring Saturday paper or Crikey, or they even subsidise that Mad West publications. So, you know, there's hands out the money's available from Monica Wells for all of this kind of tripe. It's just outrageous, should be declared, and should be a level playing field where they're forced to compete with people who are critical of them.
Michael Danby is old school Labor. He's the Labor sort of person that in my youth I actually voted for. Old school Labor is nearly more conservative than the new moderate Liberals. If you listen to Michael, he has some really good opinions. If you had a party built, say, called New Labor, and they could make up a party of people like Michael Danby, you would vote for it. So it's a pity, but we talk about the Liberals losing their connection to their brand from the Menzies days. The ALP's lost their connection to what the ALP used to be all about. It still had its problems, and you still had Fabians leading it all the way back to Whitlam, but there used to be, if you went back and you could study Bob Hawke's first or second cabinet in his terms in government, they were good Australian people. You still had the idiots, you really did, but there was still, you could find people, for example, they used to have labourers and farmers who used to be ALP politicians, people who actually worked for a living before going into Parliament. You never find that these days.
And Holly, to your point, I mean, you don't need to write an opinion piece to get across an opinion. I mean, Barnaby Joyce yells at a dog. A journalist says, "Here, why are you cracking up like this and acting so badly?" And another journalist might say, "Now listen, more importantly, what about massive immigration into this country?" You're not biased, but yes, you are, in fact, in the questions you ask. Are the Liberals and Labor now fighting? Yep.
I was just going to say, I thought that was the best news that Sarah Ferguson has delivered ever, with that clip about Barnaby yelling at poor Stella. And I can tell you, you've got a farm dog, they have to be disciplined. And it shows the divide between those who've lived on a farm, understand rural and regional life, versus some inner city lefty and all their brigade now that it's some form of animal cruelty. For God's sake. But I did make sure that my little beautiful Maltese Shih Tzu is well and truly ensconced in the front bar tonight and not going to interrupt the show.
That's great, Holly. Let's talk about something a little bit more serious. But, so we've just given you two examples there of how our government governments don't hesitate to waste our taxpayers' dollars on ludicrous things. People, while mainstream media does still wield influence, people are moving away from it. And the other part that they can't control is on social media. We get just as much news from that, so we actually see the hypocrisy. So like right now, I'm sharing about this waste of taxpayers' dollars. So everybody who now looks at a mainstream media journalist who is on social media will go, well, how can we trust anything you say? So many things we're losing trust in. For example, politics. You used to trust it, believe it or not. I mean, none of us do anymore. But in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, overall, you'd have an election, you'd vote for your preferred party, you'd listen to the debates, and then for the next 3 years, you got on with life. You just didn't worry about it too much. There'd be the odd issue that comes up, but most not everyday people, we were too busy running businesses, raising families, playing sport, going to nightclubs, just enjoying life. We didn't have any of the issues you've got now. We didn't have mass immigration. Well, we always had, that crew that wanted to paint Australia as a colonial country, but not to the extent it is today. You always have arguments about the flag, but not through Indigenous issues. So we just didn't have a lot of this nonsense going on in my day. Maybe my generation was very, very lucky, but I do feel for coming generations on what is coming their way. Anyway, let's keep going. We're doing well here. There's that 67.6 million. That's nuts. 2,000 journalists they're funding. Got to get back to Tim Joe. Gave you a good shout out there, mate. Oh, I've gone too far. What are we up to? Not many more, I don't think. Oh, here we go. This is an international one. I don't know how many of you follow, like me being a basketball coach, I follow the basketball. And this young lady here, she's sensational. Her name's Sophie Cunningham. She plays alongside probably the greatest basketballer on the women's side that's ever lived in, Caitlin Clark. And she cops no bullshit. She's a MAGA supporting conservative, and she's playing in the WNBA, which, to be unkind, is run by a bunch of lesbian woke women, majority. Well, they could be black, they could be white, but they lean towards, all whites are racist, bigots, and all this sort of thing. There was one issue where one of their opponents, a tall black woman, not nothing to do with race, just describing the person before everyone comes on to me, but she cracked it with I think it was Caitlin Clark, because she's always in issues. And listen, if I'm being fair, Caitlin Clark can be, she definitely gets the raw end of the stick. But as a basketball coach, if she behaved in that way towards referees and everyone, I would be pulling her into line. She can be a bit of a prima donna. She's a hell of a player. But she does make a rod for her own back, because it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, pink, or whatever. I know in basketball, if you embarrass referees, they will not be your friends. And the way she communicates to them, little wonder she cops a little bit. So I think she makes it harder for herself. But this young lady, one, she's hot. Can you say that anymore, that a woman's attractive? She's a gorgeous woman. And all she did in this game is this opponent was going off, and all she did was point at her. She didn't say a word, didn't do anything. She just pointed at her because this other opponent, this tall black woman, was pointing at everyone. So you would probably, unless you're not on social media, you would have seen memes of it. And it's become a meme everywhere. They just had her on, there's obviously school holidays in America, and she's got these girls' camps she's attending. And every single young girl, all they wanted to do was get a photo of them with Sophie pointing ahead. So it's become quite a big thing over there, which is ridiculous in itself. But good on her. So she started this. She did it. It was actually quite funny when she did it. But now, like in the AFL, everything's under a microscope. Everything you do gets placed under a microscope. And, there's the goody two-shoes out there that just have to govern to the nth degree. So the WNBA, full of a lot of it's like in a lot of female sports, tennis is notorious for it. You have a lot of the lesbian crew in there. You have a lot of the black activist crew in there. They're the ones who govern it. That's what the WNBA has been known for. But now all of a sudden they've got some white girls coming in and showing them they can play every bit as well as the dark girls. They don't like that. The WNBA is telling Sophie Cunningham she can no longer point, as it's been determined to be a racially derogatory statement. So now if you point at someone, it's racially motivated. Also, she can't use her own likeness, like Jordan did, when he palmed the basketball to sell merchandise of her hilarious viral moment. The woke joke WNBA blatantly censoring a white woman because the organisation is run by racists themselves. 100% spot on. And it's so sad. It is so sad that what is sport's become. As a person who's lived his whole life in sport, made an income out of sport, God knows how many thousands of kids I've coached or provided competitions to. God knows how many adults I've coached and provided competitions to. We should be just coming together to play a game of sport. Put all the other stuff out of it. Whether you're left, whether you're right, whether whatever you are, whether you're from an immigrant from overseas, whether you're not, whatever, you come together, play sport, do it the right way, have some sportsmanship, some ethics and integrity, go out there, play hard, play to win, and have a bit of fun like Sophie does. It's just insane that they're making it. And over here, the AFL's going the same way. They would want to legislate and condense our players. Now, I'm going to give the Liberals a shout-out. God, yes, that's right. I'm going to give the Liberals a shout-out, or I should say I'm going to give a Liberal a shout-out. So, Michaelia Cash, I'll play the clip in a minute. Me and Ben from Australian Talk the other day were talking about for the Liberals to survive, Conservatives from within the Liberal Party need to split away from the moderates, and they need to go and talk to One Nation and form a new Conservative centre-right party that can win government. The Nation Party doesn't have at the moment is enough people who've got government experience that know how to lead the party in a Senate, as Michaelia Cash does with the Liberal Party and does a great job. Michaelia Cash is forthright. She's the sort of person that would fit right in with Pauline Hanson and One Nation. She has opinions and she strongly expresses them. Now, do I agree with them all? No. You're never, ever going to agree with everyone on everything, but I agree with her on most things. And here's a classic example now with the ALP. When we talk ALP, the union movement, they're having their big union ALP meeting they do once a year to decide policy for the next 12 months. And the ALP, you can go bet to a rock because they're denying it or they're not commenting on it, that they will move to change the Australian flag. Have a listen to Michaelia Cash and her response to it.
If I'm asked whether the Union Jack should be removed from the Australian flag, my answer is simple: no. I love Australia, I love our flag, and I will always defend it. Unlike Claire O'Neill and the Australian Labor Party. Just watch Claire on Sunrise this morning.
Claire, are you up for changing the flag?
Nat, I'm super respectful of the question. I'm telling you, as Housing Minister, I don't spend my time thinking about the national flag.
Yes or no on changing the Union Jack?
Again, Nat, sorry, it's not something that I've had a moment to think about.
Look,
why is that a hard question? I haven't had a moment to think about it. You either support the flag or you don't. You either support the Union Jack or you don't. I mean, she's a grown woman. She's supposedly the housing minister, though God knows what she's doing on that front. But why is that a hard question to answer? That's an easy question. I support the Australian flag. I love it.
If it comes up, it's been in the paper today, you've got a head start. Yes or no?
Let's not go through it again.
Yep, but we can walk and chew gum at once, I guess.
Now you know where Labor stands. The Coalition will always defend the Australian flag.
Authorised by MCASH, Liberal Party, Perth.
So good on them. We're critical of the Liberal Party, but you've got to give them credit when credit is due. And on that one, Michaela Cash and Angus Taylor, who was very strong on it yesterday, they support that flag. So anyone who supports that flag, when they do that, I'll give them a shout out. So well done, Liberals. It's about time you sort of got on board. Now stop all the bullshit attacks on One Nation and start focusing on the real enemy. And you've got two enemies. One is the ALP and the other enemy is inside your party. They're the moderates. And I'm sick of hearing of these moderates and their little woke agendas, these little Labor-light agendas they've got. You need conservatives like Michaela Cash. You need to split. We have got too many things going on in this country for us to be tolerating any sort of view that's going to dilute our heritage, our country, our future, our traditions. As I've just shown in this program, we've got plenty of them. We got the Indigenous Parliament. We've got the attack on the Australian flag. There will be a Republican initiative coming forward in the next year or two. I guarantee you that from the ALP. We've got to get a centre-right conservative party up and running. Now, if that means you've got to cut ties with the Liberal heritage, you've already done that, by the way. You do not reflect the Menzies Liberal Party at all. So you've already cut ties. What you would be doing by going back with One Nation, and I'll give you a name for the party. Why don't you call it the Australian Menzies Party? So you define that you're Australian first. I'm pretty sure if you approach Pauline Hanson and those there, they would probably be open to it. I would at least hope they would be. Or you could call it the Australian Menzies Conservative Party, the AMC. Why not? You got the ALP. Let's have the AMC. Whatever it is, whatever it's called, it's got to reflect those initial Liberal values that you've cut ties with. You're no longer the Liberal Party that we knew. That's why you're just diving in the polls. And you need to get back to that. And Melissa McIntosh, I think she's a silly girl at times, but maybe she was onto something about a rebrand. Maybe she just was onto something about how you need to get the attention of the Australian public. Because let's be honest, Liberals, if you're listening to this, and I will be writing to you in the next week, inviting you onto the podcast to explain your position, you no longer have the eyes of the public on you. And while you remain the Liberal Party as you are, you will not get the eyes of the public on you. No matter how good Michaela Cash or others are within your ranks, until we know for sure that you're serious about Australian issues, your poll numbers will continue to stay in the 20s or lower. My bet is if you don't change things, it'll continue to decline. So anyway, that's it. We've done an hour. That's a pretty good spiel. In the links, I'll put you down. I'll do this a little bit better. I'll put it into my little image that we've got for the program, the Eureka Conservative Daily. So you can use the QR code if you need, but look for the links. We're spending now a considerable amount of time. We've got 6 shows a week that we do, or that I do. And like you can see, it's not flash. This is no studio. This is my upstairs office coming from you with my boy in the background. He's the only staffer I've got. Here he comes. Come on, JJ, come and say goodbye. Come on. He always knows when I'm going to finish up. He gets off his couch. Now he's going to get back on his couch. Like I said at the start of the program, they give you a laugh. So, yeah, if you can afford to, spread the word. Get some more conservatives in. I'd love to get some guests for a morning show every now and again. Tomorrow we're doing the empty chair day. Fridays is empty chair day. And I will be conducting an interview with people who will not come on for some reason and be a person that I can have a conversation with about all sorts of issues on this program. So for those ones I've continually invited and they refuse to come on, or they've had a dig at me, and every time someone has a dig at me, I always invite them onto the program. You know, if you want to have a dig at me, that's fine. Come on the program. Put your face there like I do. Here he comes. You're saying, Dad, you've had enough. It's been an hour. I need my brekkie. Don't we? We both need it. Yes. So, yeah, I've had a few of those, and when you ask them to come on, they just won't come on. And, you know, I've hosted a whole bunch of people. They might have different ideas, different viewpoints, but we talk. You know, and I'll put mine forward. For example, my idea of a republic, that gets canned all the time, but I'm still going to push it because I think it's a bloody good idea. But, you know, just because it doesn't get taken up, at least if, I tell you what, on that idea of the republic, when the ALP move to go to a republic and have a referendum on it and bring forward a new constitution, there'll be a bunch of I told you so's coming from me. So anyway, I'm going to keep pushing it until that happens. We'll see what goes on. But if you like what I do, if you want to see Australia retain its roots to that flag and what it meant and what our parents did and our forebears did to build that flag and build this nation and to get us back to what it was, then share this podcast and support the podcast if you can. Because believe it or not, it does actually cost some dollars for me. So I'm not going to be, I've always said I'm not going to be selling merch, at least not to this point. And if I can get this to just cover its cost, and you can do that by shouting me a coffee. I'll put it in the links on I kind of put it in the links on my YouTube videos. I keep forgetting to do that. I'll get around this. I'll put it on my header. But if you look on my X feed, I've got links to buy me a coffee. We can shout $5, $10, $15. Just shout a coffee. You know, $5. Actually, $5 these days does not buy you a coffee. It's more like $7, $8, $10 to buy. And you get the little coffees now. It's just crazy what they're charging you. So anyway, if you can shout us a coffee or even half a coffee, it would be gratefully appreciated and just help us to make sure not only do we continue with this program, but we can make it bigger and better. All right. So that's what we'd like to be able to do. So anyway, and there'll be some other announcements coming up, hopefully next week. I'm just working on them in the background. So stay tuned, spread the word. And it's all our programs available by our YouTube channel or X, and which again we'll put in the links. And if you can support us and spread the word about us, and if we can spread enough of the word and we get enough followers, enough subscribers on YouTube, enough subscribers on X, that in itself generates funds. So, but we're a long way from that. I can tell you, I need some engagement. Anyway, that's enough for me for one day. Like I said, spread the word. God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets. All right. And God bless this country. See you tomorrow morning. Friday. I've made it to Friday. Not yet. I've got to get up in the morning. I'm going to have one day. I guarantee you're going to be looking for it, and I'll have slept through the alarm, but we'll see. I haven't done it yet. So see everyone. Have a good day. Bye for now.